Hello, my name is Patricia Morales Bueno. I am a professor at Pontificia Universidad Católica del Perú, and I'm going to present the work Students After the Pandemic. What are the differences in their achievement, motivation, and metacognitive skills? Which is shared with Professor Rosario Santos Rodas. During the health emergency caused by the COVID pandemic, education has been one of the areas that had to adapt very quickly to the new situation to continue with the training processes at all levels. Furthermore, the educational context became one of the most pertinent scenarios to evaluate the impact of the pandemic situation and its implications on young students, mainly in the emotional aspect, since this undoubtedly has a direct effect on their academic performance. The transformation of educational processes to remote modality was assumed in a variety of ways, depending on factors such as accessibility to technology, teacher training, management of digital resources, internet connectivity, among others. Based on these factors, teachers had to design the remote learning context for their students. It is assumed that the scope for meeting goals and learning achievements has been very heterogeneous, and this could imply that students who join their university education precisely when the post-pandemic stage begins also show differences in terms of their academic profiles. The impact of remote education in times of pandemic on students is being investigated from various perspectives, and the results are showing that the findings are dependent on the geographical, social, and educational context in which the research is developed. However, a very relevant framework is being built for the rethinking of the post-pandemic pedagogical models. It is known that metacognition influences the way in which the student adapts his cognitive activity according to the learning context, the demand of the task, his background and personal characteristics, and the application of strategies that will allow him to face the problem. In this sense, the purpose of this study was aimed at comparing the characteristics of the metacognitive profile and the motivational profile from an attributional perspective of students who began their university education before the pandemic with those of a group of students who began their studies in the semester of return to face-to-face mode post-pandemic. Both groups included first-year students studying science and engineering at a Peruvian university. The participants in this study were two cohorts of first-year students of science and engineering from a Peruvian university. They were enrolled in a general chemistry course. In this study, two instruments were used. Attributional Achievement Motivation Modified Scale consists of 30 semantic differential items which are valued on a gradient of 1 to 6 points. The items are configured in 6 dimensions. Maximum score per subject is 180 and minimum 30. Cronbach's alpha value is 0.9026. The Metacognitive Awareness Inventory consists of 52 items distributed in two categories: knowledge of cognition and regulation of cognition, which in turn are divided into other more specific categories. In this study, the validated version of the instrument in Spanish was used. The Cronbach's alpha in this case was 0.94. The Cronbach's alpha values for the categories ranged from 0.61 to 0.77. Students in both groups were informed of the purpose of the study and then invited to respond voluntarily and anonymously to the two instruments during the first 2 weeks of the semester. The data were analyzed using a statistical package for the social sciences. A descriptive analysis of the instrument's scores expressed as percentage was performed. The t-test was used to verify differences between the participant groups, considering as dependent variables the corresponding instrument scores. Table 1 shows the descriptive statistics for the 6 dimensions and total score of motivation scale, all expressed as percentage for the two participants groups. In both groups, the dimensions with the highest scores were interest and effort, interaction with faculty, and task ability, while the dimensions related to collaborative interaction with peers and the influence of peers on learning skills had the lowest scores. Both profiles oriented their attributions of academic success towards the deployment of the own effort and interest in academic work, with strong expectations of the teacher's role as part of the process and the challenge of the task as a stimulus for learning. No significant differences were found for the total test score between the groups. These results indicate that a similar level of motivation was achieved with both groups. Table 2 shows the descriptive statistics for the 8 categories and total score of metacognitive instrument for the two participants groups. The knowledge of cognition category involves the student's declarative knowledge about himself as a person who learns and factors that can influence his learning, as well as the strategies and resources used to achieve it. It also includes procedural knowledge that is related to the correct execution of strategies and resources in the learning process. Conditional knowledge is the third component of this dimension and is related to the conscious application of a cognitive action. No significant differences were found in the comparison of these categories between the participating groups. The regulation of cognition category is related to metacognitive activities that allow learning to be controlled. These include planning activities that involve establishing goals, times, selecting strategies, and resources for learning. During the execution of the process, monitoring activities are applied that are linked to supervision during its development and, eventually, the identification of weaknesses that can be adjusted to achieve the learning goals. Finally, the evaluation component is related to the analysis of the effectiveness of all the strategies applied. In this category, significant differences were found between the participating groups, with the pre-pandemic group having the best results. The return to face-to-face activities post-pandemic gave rise to strong expectations and uncertainty regarding what should be the best pedagogical strategies to promote the learning of students entering higher education. However, unpleasant experiences are frequently reported in this process, and therefore it was necessary to identify the different variables that could be influencing, either positively or negatively, the development of the learning processes of the new university students. The results obtained in this study mainly show that, in this case, the student's previous experience did not promote the use and development of metacognitive skills related to the regulation of the cognitive process, although it was assumed that one of the benefits of remote teaching during the pandemic had been the development of skills for autonomous learning. It is important to take these research reports into account because, although they come from different experiences, they are forming a relevant frame of reference for the review and rethinking of the pedagogical models and practices of this post-pandemic time. Thank you.